Ghost of Tsushima was one of PlayStation's best new IPs since The Last of Us, and after the success of the PlayStation 4 release and subsequent PC release last month, the hype for Ghost of Tsushima 2 is at an all-time high. Now, I was hoping we'd get it revealed during the summer game events earlier this month, but PlayStation clearly had other plans. Today, we are going to dive into the world of Ghost of Tsushima and discuss the big reveal for the game, as the ghost could be returning sooner than you think. We're also going to talk about some story theories, possible gameplay innovations, and so much more. Guys, we have a lot to cover in this video, so check the chapters for easy viewing. Also, don't forget to enter the PS5 giveaway. Those details are in the pinned comment, and let's get started. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, then you know that Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite games of the PlayStation 4 generation, and it's arguably the best PlayStation IP since The Last of Us. The sequel to Ghost of Tsushima has reportedly been in development since the director's cut dropped in August of 2021, and as of right now, there has been no official confirmation of Ghost 2's development from Sony. There have, however, been several job listings by Sucker Punch Production, the studio's developer, so unless there's been some insane shakeup at PlayStation Studios, Sucker Punch has been deep in the development of Ghost of Tsushima 2. Now, as of this video's upload date, the game has been in development for just about 4 years, which honestly is quite a long time for a sequel. To put things into perspective, God of War's reboot released in 2018, and then the sequel, God of War Ragnarok, released just 4 years later. And then we have Last of Us 1, which was released in 2013, and then the sequel was released in 2020. Now, this 7-year gap was mainly due to Naughty Dog also releasing Uncharted 4 in 2016. My point is, the development for Ghost of Tsushima 2 should be getting close to its final stages, and the reveal should be imminent, but more on that in just a bit. Now, when it comes to the gameplay for Ghost 2, one of my favorite aspects of the first game was the combat and exploration. Ghost of Tsushima 1 featured some of the best combat mechanics for a video game in recent memory. The unique stance system, which was expertly designed to exploit weaknesses to certain enemies, which added a layer of strategy to the combat encounters. The combat in Ghost of Tsushima almost felt like a chess match. It was so awesome. There was also the standoff, which was a cinematic duel that came straight from the classic samurai films. To this day, I jump on Ghost of Tsushima just to be able to experience the combat system again, because it truly is a work of art. Now, when it comes to expanding upon the gameplay and combat system, there are a ton of ways that Sucker Punch can take things with the sequel. They already have an excellent foundation built, so my hope in the sequel is for them to add more depth to the established systems in place and provide more variety to the stances, more samurai weaponry, and add more movement options during combat. One of the other aspects that I loved about Ghost of Tsushima's combat was how they encouraged players to utilize surroundings in combat. For example, tall grass for stealth, or other hazards like explosive barrels to take out multiple enemies. Now, another thing that I would love to see is more movement options for traversing the map. I'd like to see more flexibility with the grappling hook. Having the ability to use it during combat as well as traverse the map would be a nice touch. Now, a better parkour system in the game as well as wall running and more, just to add a bit more variety to the overall gameplay. Now, with the next game having a bigger map now that the game might take us to mainland Japan, each region's gameplay and movement feeling unique would be awesome. Now, speaking of the open world, there has been a ton of rumors that the next game could take place in certain parts of mainland Japan. Obviously, we know that Tsushima Island will be the main region of the next game, and it will likely evolve in the same way that Spider-Man 2 evolved from Spider-Man 1, where the entire map was effectively the same, but areas are updated, new regions are added. With Iki Island being introduced in Ghost of Tsushima, I think it's safe to assume that that region will also be in the sequel, but it will be updated just like Tsushima Island. Now, another aspect of Ghost of Tsushima that was amazing was the exploration. The game is absolutely beautiful, but for the sequel, they need to keep the exploration relatively the same, letting the wind guide you to objectives, not a bunch of clutter on the screen. The sense of discovery was a huge highlight for the first game, so the devs really need to try to catch lightning in a bottle for a second time. And this is not me saying that they need to overhaul the map like Nintendo did from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, but it almost has to be an entire overhaul. This is of course one of the hard parts of doing a sequel to a game set in a real world place like Tsushima Island or Spider-Man in New York City. It's nearly impossible to have a sequel's world feel unique, but I think Sucker Punch will pull it off, especially if there's a time gap between the first game and the sequel. But that's one of the reasons why I think this game will almost certainly have Jin Sakai go to mainland Japan. That will give players a unique game world to explore from the original, and it will be a perfect set piece for them to do larger scale battles. So when it comes to the story for Ghost of Tsushima 2, after recently playing the game again on PC, my mind is filled with all of the possible theories of where Sucker Punch could take us for the sequel. But with the ending giving us a solid idea of where they plan on taking things and what challenges Jin Sakai will have to face, I've talked about several theories on my channel, the main one being that Ghost 2 starting 7 years after the events of the first game and being centered around the second Mongol invasion. The reason why I think this is the most obvious is due to the details of that invasion. Not only did Tsushima Island get invaded, but the invasion also took place in mainland Japan. So not only will Jin have to deal with the Shogun forces from his decisions of the first game, but he will also have to deal with the Mongols for a second time. This time he won't have nearly as many supporting his cause against the Mongols. My hope for in the sequel is for them to continue the trend of the larger battles that they did with the first game, but this time in mainland Japan. Obviously the game's focus will be Tsushima Island, at least for the most part of the game, but perhaps he has to retreat to help mainland Japan deal with the invasion. Or what if the start of Ghost of Tsushima is him actually being captured by these Shogun forces, and then he's taken to mainland Japan to be confronted by the Shogun who never appeared in the first game, and then the massive second Mongol invasion happens, and to keep his life he's forced by the Shogun to help fight off the invasion of Japan. Like, I'm picturing a large battle against Mongol forces in the mainland, and then after they defeat them, he leaves the mainland to his home of Tsushima Island that's been overrun by Mongols, and he has to take them down to restore peace to Tsushima Island again and restore honor to Clan Sakai. Out of every theory I have regarding the sequel, this is the one that I think makes the most sense. Obviously some of the details will be different, but I think the second Mongol invasion and the Shogun will be the main aspects that Ghost of Tsushima 2 will cover with the story. If Jin Sakai is going to the mainland, there will have to be reasons for him to be there, and I think him being confronted by the Shogun is what has the most intrigue, at least in my opinion. But I might be biased after watching Shogun. Speaking of that, watch that. If you like Ghost of Tsushima, you will love that show. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Ghost of Tsushima 2 has been in development for nearly 4 years, with Ghost 2 being a sequel taking place in the same region as the first game. The development should be at a point where Sucker Punch is ready for a reveal within the next 6 to 10 months, with a release happening in the next year or two. We obviously didn't get a PlayStation showcase during the summer game events. We got a PlayStation State of Play, which was solid, but it wasn't nearly what fans were hoping for from PlayStation, and it almost feels like Sony has been falling asleep at the wheel lately. The last PlayStation showcase we got that actually gave us the goods was in 2021 during the September showcase, and with PlayStation releasing the PS5 Pro console in the holiday season of this year, you would think that a big showcase would be happening soon. I really hope they do a PlayStation 5 Pro showcase later this year in September and finally unveil Ghost 2 during that event, but at this rate, unless they do a showcase in the fall, I wouldn't expect a reveal for Ghost of Tsushima 2 until the summer game showcases in 2025, which is a year away. With how quiet PlayStation Studios has been, everything is kind of a toss-up at this point. But again, I really hope we get a PlayStation 5 showcase in September and kind of repeat the 2021 showcase that gave us the actual goods. Like, we had Spider-Man there, we had Wolverine there, we had God of War Ragnarok. PlayStation Studios needs to start telling us some stuff because they've been cooking, but they haven't been telling us anything. Now let's talk about the release date for Ghost of Tsushima 2, the million-dollar question that everyone is begging to know, and I'll be straight up. I would not expect a release in the first half of 2025. I would say our best guess is a release in the second half of 2025, likely sometime in October, possibly November. That is if we get a reveal of the game this year. If we don't get the reveal until 2025, then the release date will likely be in the middle of 2026, but that's assuming they keep the same marketing timeline of about 6 to 10 months of build-up from the game's reveal to the eventual release date. This year has a lot riding on it in terms of Ghost of Tsushima 2's release window, and as much as I would love for a release to happen in 2025, PlayStation will not allow this game to release anywhere near GTA 6. Next year, entire studios will be holding their release dates until Rockstar finally gives a date for GTA 6, and once they give a date, everything else will release outside of the GTA 6 launch window. The hype and anticipation for Ghost of Tsushima 2 is at an all-time high after the insane success of the first game on the PlayStation 4, the PS5, and now the PC community is experiencing the game for the first time. The hype will only get bigger as time goes on. Sucker Punch has a real opportunity to make Ghost of Tsushima 2 the game of the year that the first game deserved to be, and I don't doubt that Sucker Punch will pull it off, but only time will tell. Well guys, that's gonna wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you've enjoyed my coverage of Ghost of Tsushima 2. Subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news. Don't forget to enter the 160,000 subscriber PS5 giveaway. Those details are in the pinned comment. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.